We know that thoughts are energy. However, the world of energy is ruled by specific laws, which we are becoming more and more acquainted with, very much like the three-dimensional world is ruled by the laws of physics that we study at school, for instance. These energetic laws rule the fact that thought energy starts in the higher dimensional reality, which is much more subtle than our physical 3D reality. So when a seed, a thought, is received and charged with intention or emotion, energy in motion, then it starts the process of being born, of manifesting. But it takes time for this subtle energy to step down into our 3D physical reality. We don't know how long. It varies depending on the integrity of our intention, the clarity of our thoughts, the force of our vision, the passion in our hearts, and so on. It also varies depending on the natural cycles, for instance, the ebbs and tides of energy, the planets' alignment, and their influence on our Earth and our physical bodies during birth and during the whole duration of our lives. The numerological vibrational frequencies stored in our names or the astrology that describes our personalities gives us indications of our potential. Everything is connected. We are not separated from the natural world. Both the Earth, our home, and the cosmic connection, the macro world or the universe, gives us indications of our potential. But there is a time gap between the moment when we have a thought to the moment when we actually experience the results of its manifestation. The perceptual effect on us is a feeling of disempowerment. And as we lose track of this connection, it is at those moments that we tend to somehow feel as victims of the circumstances. On the other hand, since there is a gap between the thoughts that occur to us and the specific expectations of their manifestations that we project into the world outside of ourselves, when we receive the result, sometimes we don't realize that this is the way the universe responded to our request. That's to say, the universe always brings to us the essence of the thought, not the exact mirror or physical form of what we ask for or wanted. And the universe does so, taking into account all the aspects already mentioned. If there is a karmic block, the thought may come to us in the form of a lesson and not in the clean-cut specific reality we were hoping for. And since our original thoughts become then both a process and a lesson, we lose track of the connection and we forget that indeed our thoughts are energy, according to the level of personal development and emotional intelligence that we may have acquired. Our emotional boundaries will be more or less strong. Depending on the strength of our boundaries, we will use a larger or a smaller amount of energy in order to defend or perceive the vulnerability, which is personalized by our ego. The amount of energy that we successfully integrate in our systems depends both on our level of personal growth and the quality of layers of ego released. It is our objective to find the balance in our psyche between the light, for instance, the clarity of mind, and the shadow, for instance, unconscious, disowned part of our personality. When the results of projecting our thoughts into the physical world are positive, we are happy to take ownership of the process. But when the original thoughts are blocked by a hidden personality pattern, an ignored or forgotten memory stored in our shadow self, we may tend to disown our creation, forfeit our personal power, and feel at the mercy of a higher being. We developed a victim mentality. We may feel as if the universe is toying with us. With a strong emotional boundary and a healthy level of self-awareness, it is likely that we can get ourselves out of that debilitating victim mentality. And we seem to be able to sail more or less fluidly throughout life until we hit a karmic lesson. Karmic lessons are cycles of hidden patterns of behavior that may come from a previous life or from our childhoods. Either way, we don't tend to realize that we are in a karmic cycle or web until usually we feel trapped. It is difficult to release a karmic lesson. I have learned that you can only cooperate with the present time and zigzag the energy currents as they come without getting too involved emotionally. For me, emotional separation was one of my first and toughest skills that I needed to develop in order to survive emotionally in the world. By taking the position of the observer as much as possible and by willingly go through the steps, you eventually walk the bridge between the obscure, invisible, and paralyzing energy web into a present reality that can be seen and touched. But most people will only willingly work with these spiritual contracts with the objective to clear their energy fields when life forces them to do so, usually by living a shocking experience that makes them wake up from a semi-dormant state. Unfortunately for us, we have no control over the length of time required for a karmic cycle to be completed. So once we realize that we are trapped in a repetitive pattern from which we can't get released, we need to make a commitment to ourselves to do the personal development or healing required work for as long as it is needed. And this takes faith, as we have no proof that we are doing the right work or going on the right direction. Only the whispers of our intuition can guide us. So we need to learn to trust. In the majority of cases, we will be jolted out of the comfort zone of our everyday lives with, for instance, an illness, a painful relationship breakup, the loss of financial security, a job or a big investment. At this stage, it is normal to experience frustration, anger, unhappiness, desperation, and many other negative feelings. But this is the moment of the truth, the moment when we decide whether we have sufficient personal spiritual energy to bridge our negative present circumstances and rebuild our lives, or we decide we can face this reality and make a decision, consciously or unconsciously, that will compromise our integrity. For the sake of feeling safe, or in order to gain a perceived advantage, we will take a road that not only won't release us from the previous karmic cycle, but which will entangle us in various other smaller cycles within the cycles, so as to speak. Because on the spiritual path, there is a straight and narrow line that delimits the direction that we need to walk. And there is very little deviation from this line if we really want to liberate ourselves from the injuries and traumas of the past. And not just the past as in this lifetime, but from all the millennia that our eternal souls have been experiencing this 3D reality in order to grow and evolve. If we take the easy path, we may settle for and accept a lesser reality than what we originally wanted. It is the bird in the hand scenario, which we feel that it will at least stop us from doing without, a feeling of free falling, a vertigo that we experience when we lose control of the rhythms, events, and outcomes of our lives. This is the ego pulling us back into a kind of comfort zone, and we may feel strongly tempted to deviate from the path we know to be right for us, as very few of us can tolerate living without a feeling of control over our reality. Unfortunately, opting for this path, projecting to the world the vibrational frequency of a state of being functioning at survival level, without enough faith to gather the courage to keep going on the right track, following the truth of our inner guidance, and doing the things that are required in order to forge our soul into the next level of growth, this will energetically be translated as a possible unsafe and uncertain future. Because the only thing that holds us together in this life is to stand for whom we are, to be honest with ourselves, to live with integrity. This is integrated energy systems. And everything else that may look safe from the outside, for instance, having a lot of material possessions, is just an illusion, a deception, a maya. At this survival level, the prostitute archetype, introduced by Caroline Myss in her book Sacred Contracts, is activated. When our prostitute archetype is imbalanced, We settle for our bottom line in exchange of money or security. Concepts such as higher potential, natural gifts, faith in the universe, inner guidance become irrelevant and even laughable when we are only concerned with our basic survival needs. I consider this a stop, a break, a crossroads on our path to mastery or ascension. Our evolution becomes harder and it takes longer to achieve. We experience more frustration, more struggle. We need more effort in order to achieve the basic things. We get lost in the labyrinth of confusion and we live less efficiently, experiencing less love, gratitude, or compassion. This is why when I got into the spiritual path after a divorce at the age of 32 years old, I made my decision that whatever it took, I would follow the path of my inner truth because anything else was not worth the price I would have to pay. Stuck in this limbo, like a frequency bracket in which we get stuck, not being able to move forwards nor backwards, we keep going around and around with the same motions and in the same patterns until either life brings us another opportunity to leap forward or we consciously start mapping a path of our own design. This takes focus, courage, and a lot of personal power. I don't say that this is easy, but it can be done. And while millions of people are living today in a state of despair and hopelessness, it sometimes takes just one person to take charge of their inner light and show the way forward to the others. But of course, one will only see this light when one is ready to take that step of growth. It is a game we play, and it is called life.